Of course. Yeah. How's your day? What's happening?
It's been good. I'm a teacher, so I was teaching earlier on, and then luckily had an earlier day, kind of packed in the beginning, but got out a little early. So yeah, just getting back into kind of going on walks and things like that, but nothing too crazy yet.
Good.
But yeah,
Good.
how about you?
Oh, my day was great. I can't complain about anything. I'm just lucky and blessed and happy to be chatting with you. So, and I apologize, like you have sort of just come across my radar recently and you've been around doing this thing for a long time and I just wanted to touch base and hear your story and I think that most recently your latest big thing that you did was 95 marathons in 95 days, or have you done anything since then? I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. So actually that was last year.
Okay.
So since then, I won the Ouray 100,
Oh,
and I just set a new FKT on the Pinhoti Trail. Um,
okay.
so done a couple of things since then. Yeah. So
Wow. Okay. So I didn't realize that the 95 marathons was last year, but okay. So cool. Let's go backwards. So the latest was the Pinhoti Trail.
it was, yeah. So
Okay.
that was actually just a little less than 2 weeks ago, like 10
Ah,
days.
okay.
Yeah, yes. Corey kind of threw down the gauntlet. Corey Waltering has the men's record,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
there is not a previous women's supported record yet. So I had actually attempted that trail self-supported before last year, and then wanted to go back after it. So went back out there over Thanksgiving break. I had a week off. Was like, sweet, I'll just go see what I can do. So
Nice.
yeah, so that was yeah, just I finished up on like the 27th.
Oh,
So
wow.
not too
Okay.
long ago. Yeah.
And remind me, what's the distance on that trail?
So that is a tiny bit less than 350 miles and like 50K of elevation.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your record time? You finished in,
So 5 days, 14 hours, and like 30-ish
whoa,
minutes.
crazy. Okay. And it was
Yeah.
supported. So you had people out there with you.
I did. Yeah. So I had a crew van the whole time. And then starting at about mile 230, I pretty much had pacers all the way through the last
Okay.
like 120 miles.
Okay. Okay. And are these good friends of yours, people that have paced you before?
So actually, no, I mean now they're good friends, but that's the best part I think about the trail running community.
Yeah.
So the guy that was with me for a week crewing me, I'd met him once
Mhm.
and he was just like, yeah, I want in, I want to be a
Nice.
part of it. And I met him through a good friend of mine who's super involved with the trail. And he came out and paced and helped. And then other people were just like, yeah, I'll go run for 8 hours on Thanksgiving with you. No problem. Yeah, sign me up. Or like in the middle of the night in the pouring rain. So
Of
yeah,
course.
I think that's the
Us,
best thing.
yeah, us ultra runners are a rare breed. Yeah. If somebody needs help in the middle of the night out in the mountains in the freezing cold, sure, I'm down. Why not?
Yeah, good training run. Let's go. Meet someone
Totally.
new.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Well, that's so cool. Um, so that was an FKT. So congratulations there. And that was the most recent. So
Thank
that's
you.
tremendous. And then you said before that was Ouray, and Ouray 100 is no joke. Actually, before we get into that, where are you living again? Are you in California right now?
I am, yes.
Okay.
So my husband's military, so we move a lot. So it's
Okay.
always a great question. Where are they in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been in Hawaii, we've been in Italy, we were in Florida, and yeah, now we're in California. So
Nice. Yeah. And I see
yeah,
your races are sort of following that pattern too, going just kind of going around the globe.
exactly. Yeah, getting to race in Europe was just such an awesome experience. I was like, I'm gonna get my butt kicked, which I absolutely did, but I learned a whole bunch, and I can't wait to. I'm gonna go back actually this coming summer a bit, and I'm really excited to kind of have the experience in my back pocket now and be like, all right, I'm ready.
Nice. Are you going back for a race?
Yeah, I'm. planning to do the Mont Blanc marathon, but it's the 90K, and then I'm looking at doing TDS at a UTMB. So
Okay. Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Well, that sounds like a great year.
Yeah.
Well, killer. And then yeah, Ouray 100. I talked to the male winner.
Anthony?
Anthony, yes. Anthony
Yeah.
Lee, great
He's
guy.
such a
He was
good
on the
dude.
show. Yes. And
Awesome.
he's the one that brought up your name. And actually, I also heard you on Chris Ward's podcast as well.
I
But
love Chris.
oh yeah, no, he's a great guy, And yeah, so tell me about Ouray. I mean, that is a stout course, right? I mean, but you've had some experience out in Tour de France, and you've been in Europe. You've done some big races in Hawaii. How did that stack up against those other races? I'm curious.
It's hard. Yeah, it's definitely hard. There's no question. I think the biggest thing with Ouray is there are certain things that if you get in your head, this is going to bother me, they're going to wreck you. Like the altitude is going to get really, if you're scared about the altitude, you're scared about weather, and you hate out and backs, you should not do the Ouray 100.
Okay.
But if you decide, I mean, some of it's a decision, some of it is just like how your body responds. But, altitude, I don't know how it worked, but it did. I was coming from primarily sea level, and I do get up to Yosemite a lot. So that you can get like on the upper parts is like 8 to 10, but nothing consistent. So, altitude, you're above 8,000 feet the whole time, going up to almost 14, which is pretty gnarly. And then, summer thunderstorms. I just kept being like, I actually had this jingle of like, hello, thunder, my old friend. Just it's like, I don't know, having a
Simon and Garfunkel.
Exactly. I think if you're just kind of like, yeah, it is what it is, as long as you're safe, just accept you're going to get wet. It might be a little scary in the tops, but hopefully you'll get through it. And then, the other thing with the out and backs is you just have to mentally decide that it's okay and that that's what the race is. You're going to be crisscrossing people all the time, which actually was pretty fun. Like I got to see Anthony a bunch. He would be coming back and I'll be like, all right, I guess the race is still going. Like they're not canceling for Thunder. There's Anthony. Got to keep going. So it was super fun because one of my favorite parts of trail running is the community aspect. And when you get to crisscross a lot, you get to cheer people on and see how everything's going. And from a race strategy standpoint, it's also extremely helpful because you know exactly where people are. And you can also kind of get a read multiple times of like, how are they looking? How are they doing? So strategy wise, it adds a lot of room to be able to work that angle for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that, but you're right. You get to see where second and third place is and how they're looking, and are they looking in rough shape or are they looking strong? Did you lead most of that race, or how did it sort of shake out for you?
So I wasn't supposed to, but yeah, I led from like I want to say like 10 or 15 miles in.
Dang.
I was just having a good time, and I trained so much vert. Like vert was what I did every day. I worked a lot on fast hiking. That is such an underrated skill in ultra running. It's just like time. Fast hiking. I mean, so much of my training, especially leading up to Ouray and then towards John, which I ended up not finishing, it was just like, how fast can you hike? How fast can you walk? 5 or 6 hours of that. So I have a great coach who's really knows how to specialize things, but it is an underrated skill to be able to walk really quickly.
So when you were at the beginning of the year and you were sort of looking at your year ahead and mapping it out, were those going to be your two big events? Were those going to be your two big peaks?
Yeah, so actually it was supposed to be Tour de Jean, and I'm happy to get into that, but I've now DNF'd it twice, so there is a lot of yeah, I got to go back.
Yep.
Next year, so along with those other 2 races, I said I'm going to do Moab 240 because that's been like on my radar for a long time. So Tour de Jean's going to move probably till 23. But really my focus was Tour de Jean. Ouray was going to be Ouray was a training race. I did not go into that fresh. I went to that like off a 60 or 70 mile week the week before.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. So
like,
it was
wait. The week of the race or the week before?
The week before. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had like a 4 or 5, like maybe like a 4 or 5 day taper.
Okay.
But the week before was like a decently big week.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be a training run. And then Tour, Tour just I'm a teacher and like start of school was just chaotic. Tour happened the first week of school. I was definitely really stressed about that. And I had some dehydration issues that were causing me to have like balance issues, which up high in really technical terrain gets pretty sketchy when you're like, I'm blacking out. So that is why I stopped early on tour. And I was super bummed because I trained, I really, really like we tailored the entire year to tour. And I felt super prepared for it, but that, that's part of running and racing is you just never know what's going to happen. But I think that it set me up really well. And Pinhoti was something that I had wanted to go back and try because I actually had dehydration issues on that. So working on that factor, but getting better. But so I think it was kind of an amazing opportunity that I wasn't expecting to be able to go back to Pinhoti because tour didn't work out. So I actually feel really lucky that I got back to do that and be able to accomplish the goal that I'd set out, even if it wasn't the goal I was expecting to get. So
yeah, that's cool. Isn't it funny how it always works out? I'm sure you were disappointed after tour. You had to have been, especially if you're planning on that for a whole year, but then you're able to sort of bring yourself full circle at the end of the year. So it worked out great. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I was super lucky. And I had a conversation with my coach and my husband because he has to kind of deal with all of this of like, I've trained so hard for tour. I made it to like 140. So I didn't, that's like a decent amount of time out there. I was like, I just have all this fitness. I just don't feel like the year is done. I want another challenge. And I was looking at things and I didn't feel like I had the training background to pull off like a fast 100K or a fast 100 miler. And that was kind of what was left on the table of races around me was like, the San Francisco Spartan 100K. And I was like, nah, I'm just not that fast right now. And then Rio del Lago was also up there, but again, fast race. And I had just trained to go long. And so, Pinhoti came back on the table and it was, I think it was exactly what I was hoping to do, exactly what I kind of needed too, which is super
Sounds
cool.
like it. Have you ever been interested or serious about flat, fast races like that? It sounds like climbing is your specialty now, and I'm kind of in the same camp. And when it comes to the flat stuff, it just lacks something for me. It's just kind of a little bit boring. Like I'll do it, but if the hills are right there, I'm going to run in the hills. Did you ever have any interest in the fast races?
So I've done like 2, I guess. So I did 100K in the UK that was pretty flat and I ran around like 9:30, so decently quick. And then I've done, when we were in Florida, I did a really flat 50 miler in like 7 hours. And that was just like a fun, I really wanted to run from where we lived up the coast to another place.
Cool.
But no, because I would 1,000 times rather be out doing like hill repeats or running downhill than just be like, all right, essentially like training for a fast marathon. I'm not that fast is the thing. So I am always like, I'm going to play to my strengths. My strengths are in the mountains. Like I can't compete against like a Camille Herron or something like that. Right. Like I just don't have that speed. Right. And I don't want to experience the pain it would take to even come close to developing that kind of speed. Like, I'd much rather be in pain in the mountains than in pain doing like threshold workouts and intervals. So
yeah, I totally get you. It makes total sense to me. I'm with you. But your adventure before that
was all flat.
Was all flat, it sounds like. Yeah. So tell me what the inception was of that, how it all started. And I mean, did you have plans to do 95 marathons in 95 days, or was the number supposed to be 100, or how did this thing start?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, I guess how it started, we were over in Italy at the time, and I had been training to do like Lavaredo. I was going to do Transgran Canaria, which ended up happening, but I was like kind of freaking out because Italy was in a rough spot at the start of like COVID kind of expanding out of China. And Istria 100, like all these mountainous, hilly races, and they all got canceled, as we all know. So I was just, we were locked down in Italy where we couldn't run outside, except with the military, you could run on a military base, but it was like a 2-mile loop, which was kind of gnarly. So it was either treadmill or run around a 2-mile loop. So really for me, the whole thing started as, how do I use this fitness and how do I not go insane by the fact that like things are getting canceled? We're not really allowed to go outside. Like normally, so my husband and I are also, he's much more than I am, but we do some like big mountain stuff. We've done Rainier and possibly might do the Matterhorn this summer. And we do some ice climbing, like big mountain, like we traveled every weekend when we were there doing like ski touring or mountain stuff. So, you take that off the table, you can't go anywhere. And it's like, what are we going to do? Right. So I had considered doing like the quarantine backyard ultra, which seemed awesome, but I was really worried about, because, like with any big event, the after is the rough part where you're like, you don't have the focus training. You're kind of sad that the event's over. I was really worried if I did, like I thought about 24 hours or 48 hours. It's like, but what do I do afterwards when I have to recover? And I'm sad about the thing being over, and I'm sad because COVID is happening. So I was like, what can I do that's kind of a continuous thing?
Just keep it going.
Just keep it going. Yeah, never actually have to stop. So I was like, what if I just run a marathon every day until we can go outside, which at the time, some restrictions were supposed to be lifted in like 14 days. So 14 marathons, like that sounds cool. I'm down. And started like talked to my husband about it, sent an email to my coach, and he responded the next day, and I was like, oopsies, I already started. He's like, maybe think about it for a couple days. I'm like, I started this morning.
Nice.
Yeah. He knows me well enough now that he's either tells me to just sit on my hands or or
go run a marathon.
Yeah, go run a marathon. So yeah, honestly, it was totally just like an accidental, I don't know what to do with my time. Wow. Why don't I do this? So I worked for the fitness division of the Navy. So like that was all closed up. So I just had this time where either I had to be in a gym with access to treadmills, or I was at home with access to our treadmill. And yeah, it escalated from there, and our lockdown got extended. So I was like, guess I'm just going to keep going. And it took, like, it gave me purpose every day. It gave me focus. It made me tired. It was fun. Like not every day was fun, but it was fun to have something that felt just like a routine. It felt, and it wasn't important. It's not important. It's a silly endeavor, but it felt kind of important of like, let me try to do this thing that's like semi-hard, or is hard every day.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, that is hard every day. And I'm just thinking about it, and like, it sounds fun to me for like maybe 30 days, but beyond that, it's like, and in the beginning, you said you were thinking, maybe I'll just do it for the 14 days of lockdown. So you really had no intention of setting a world record at that point, which you ended up doing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. And that's the thing is so people are like, so you set out to get a world record. It's like, I didn't even know what the record was.
When you started, you didn't even know.
Nope. I did not look it up. I looked it up probably around like 20 or 25 because I had a friend who was like, hey, what's the record on this? So I looked it up, and at that point I went, oh, I'm like almost halfway there. That's kind of cool. Maybe I should just keep trying to do this. And we were moving back to the States, what was going to be right around like 50, 55. So I was like, there's no way. I just didn't think it was possible. But again, it kind of got this momentum where I just was like, I don't know. It's like, I just guess I'll just keep doing this. And when I got to like 30 or 35, I was pretty set that I was going to try. The record was 60. So it's pretty set of like, I think I'm going to try to go for like at least 65-ish. And then after, I don't know, it just like kept going. And part of being a military spouse is that I was changing jobs, or I actually was losing my job. And I didn't have a job in Florida because we were only there for like 5 months. So, you're changing jobs, you're changing lives, you're changing friends. And the marathons become this continuity in your life. And so I think that really helped me transition to a new place, and also, gave me a purpose every day as well. So
yeah. Was most of this on a treadmill? Were you running outside? What did the day-to-day look like?
So once we were allowed to go like kind of full rain outside, I did run in Italy like every day outside once we were allowed to. And then when we moved to Florida, there were some days where I would go inside because it was so stinking hot and humid. Okay. But I would say probably like, I don't know what percentage, probably like 65 to 70% were outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I will say when you're restricted from running outside, the treadmill becomes a lot more appealing. So I have so many people who are like, I could never do that. I was like, well, when the alternative is not getting to run at all, it seems like a pretty great option. Like, how cool is it that we have a machine that like simulates running?
Exactly. Yeah, we're fortunate in that sense. What happens to you if you don't run? You said that you wanted to keep your sanity, and I think part of that was due to the whole COVID thing that was happening in the entire world. But like, would you go crazy? Like, what does crazy look like for you if you don't run?
Okay. I drive my husband insane. I always, I say this kind of jokingly, but people are always like, how do you run so much? And my thing is, I always say is, you would not be my friend if I did not run so much. Like I have definitely a very high level of energy and probably a little bit of OCD. And so I think that, and probably a little ADD as well. And I think, or ADHD, I think that running just kind of like levels me out a little bit. So when I don't have running, I just get like really angsty and just like, I gotta go, like I've got to move my body. I don't know, it's probably a little bit self-induced, but I just feel like I'm crawling, like my skin's crawling. I'm just like, I've got to move, I'm going insane. Yeah, it's better for the world if I run.
Yes. Okay, understood. And then as far as doing a marathon a day, were you doing it like first thing in the morning? What was your average marathon time throughout this whole thing? And what did your day-to-days look like? Wake up, bang out a marathon, eat, pass out, or what was it like?
Yeah, so I did try to get them done mostly in the morning, especially when we were in Florida. If I didn't start by like 5:30 to 6, it was just awful because it's so hot. Yeah, so hot. But also too, I generally averaged, I would say, anywhere from like 4:10 to 4:20-ish.
Nice.
Right around there. Some fluctuating of like a little bit faster, a little bit slower. But I found that was kind of my sweet spot. It's amazing how the human body just is like a metronome. And it just like, as long as, I'd slept pretty well and I fueled well, I could hit within like, a minute for multiple marathons in a row. Wow. Yeah, it's nuts. So, it was basically just like get up in the morning, for the most part, I'd be done by anywhere, I don't know, from like, depending on how it started, 9:30 to 11:30. And then have a meal right after, take a shower, have a bigger meal, and then kind of do whatever needed to get done, whether it's like around the house or wrapping up stuff in Italy, like moving. And then if I could take a little nap, like 30 or 45 minutes, eat more, and then have some dinner. So a fair amount of eating. The amazing thing was, though, as I progressed, your body just also becomes more used to it. And so my calorie needs, I think, were a little bit lower than when I started, especially while I was running. I just became more efficient, which is awesome that the human body can adapt to that.
Wow.
And then, a really good night's sleep was super important. But a lot of people ask me, what's your secret recovery tip? And really, it's just sleep, eating, and, taking care of yourself. And not like, I didn't go out and walk like 5 or 6 miles in the afternoon or in the evening. I did definitely take it much chiller. I didn't have a lot of energy for the rest of my the rest of the day. It was like I put all my energy into running, and then the rest of the day was just kind of, I definitely was lagging around a lot more than I usually am. But also, I think part of it is I started doing it when I was 27. I'm only 28 now. And I think that when you're younger, your body's just really pretty good at bouncing back. I think it would be a lot harder to do it at 50 or 60, just because recovery takes a lot longer. And the power of youth is a nice thing. I think I lucked out on that for sure.
Well, take it while you've got it, Alyssa, because it won't last forever. Let me tell you, I'm like 20 years older than you, and this, like, running a marathon a day sounds very painful on my body at this point. What else do you do to take care of yourself? Like, looking back, I wish that I would have spent more time stretching throughout my 20s and 30s. For me personally, because like now I'm almost trying to play catch up. I do yoga every day, but I'm like, God, I wish I would have done it throughout all those other years. What are your recovery tips? Do you eat a certain way? Like, what does all that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, for recovery, I would say definitely stretching. I do stretch a fair amount. Mostly it's just a way I fidget, is I'm always just like stretching. Like if I'm in my classroom, I'll be like stretching my foot or whatever. And my students just kind of know me at this point. I think that also, I guess this isn't necessarily recovery, but I think it's an important part of keeping your body strong is like core work. And just like even body weight strength, I think is really important. I didn't do that during the marathons because I was just tired. But my everyday life, I do core work. I make sure to incorporate that because I do think having that stability, and yoga is super good for that as well. I mean, that's working in like actual applicable strength. I think that's key. And then as far as, I mean, I really think sleep is honestly one of your best friends.
It's huge
for recovery. Yeah. In terms of nutrition, so I'm vegetarian, and then I'm gluten-free just because I have a gluten intolerance, not by choice. So for that, I mean, just, making sure that you're refueling, and not getting behind on that, because that can be huge if you're just behind and you're hungry. I've worked with quite a few nutritionists. It's like if you're hungry during your workout, you're super far behind in your calories and your nutrition. So, I don't think it has to be rocket science. And I think one of the things is that I've learned over and over, and I coach people too, is that everyone's different, everyone's unique, and you have to just kind of figure out what fits you. But really just basic things like eating enough, sleeping well, and being nice to yourself, but not beating yourself up, not constantly overdoing it. And I think that's where it's really nice to have a coach that comes in, because that's just a guiding hand of like my coach is super important to me, because he is really good at being like, okay, we're pulling back, or we're pushing you, and not just feeling like every week has to be 100 miles, or every week has to be just this huge thing. Having that variability and having someone you trust to just step in and be like, no, we need to vary this, is really helpful.
Yeah. 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 I coach people too. And same thing on people's rest days. I usually try and check in with them to make sure that they are taking a rest day and that they're treating themselves well. Like have yourself a nice smoothie or a nice cup of coffee, or treat yourself to something good on a rest day. And all that little stuff is important psychologically, I think too. What does your coach do for you specifically? Like, are you close to your coach? How does your conversations go back and forth with this person? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I work with Sean Bearden. So he has a Science of Ultra Running podcast. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. He's such a good guy. So he writes me training every single day through Final Surge. And so I follow that, and, we write notes back and forth to each other. But the biggest thing I think he's brought to my running and my life, because we have basically, like, if I ever need to chat with him, I just say, hey, can we hop on a Zoom call? And he cares so much more about me as a person than what results I bring in, or, how my training, if I hit my splits perfectly or whatever. And he's really worked on my mental strength and my just like gratitude to myself and to my body for what it can do. And he's taught me a lot about grit and just that, like, at the end of the day, it matters more who you are rather than what you accomplish. And if you get so wrapped up in the results or the workouts and lose sight of just being a good person, that can really, like, if you have your life together, or at least you're working on having your life together outside of running, it makes running so much easier. Yeah. And if you go into every race and you're like, my whole self-worth is based on whether or not I, place in the podium or finish or any of that, then, like, even if you do that, then, like, eventually that success fades, and that doesn't, like, that's not a good value system to live on. Right. And so he's done such a good job of just, like, celebrating me as a person and helping me to see that. And I just, that's so helpful. And I think, like, I'm getting better at it. I still do it sometimes, is I will just, like, work myself into a frenzy sometimes in races, because I'm like, I've got to prove myself. And he's really taught me to back off and just be like, no, this isn't about proving yourself. It's about, like, celebrating the hard work you put in. Mm-hmm. And that's been super helpful. So definitely, like, the mindset stuff. And he knows his stuff when it comes to training. Like, I think, trains me incredibly well. He's super specific, and just incredibly well researched and studied. And so I really trust what he says. And I think in the past, I haven't always trusted in the training itself. So I'd be like, I'll add on a little bit here, I'll add on a little bit there. And with him, I'm, like, very honest about, so actually I, like, did a rock climbing session because I wanted to. And he'll be like, okay, that's fine this time, but next time, like, you need to rest, or okay, then we're going to take that out because you did this. And so just having that relationship. And we had a really serious conversation last year that was like, do you want to train just, like, kind of willy-nilly, or do you really want to go after, like, big goals? And right. I was like, okay, yeah, I want to be treated I want to be treated as someone who's, like, reaching for the top level. And so I think that's an important conversation too, of, like, so what do you really want out of this? Because we can keep, like, going along and having fun and doing okay, or, you can really focus, and I'm going to hold you accountable, and you're going to have to be a lot stricter on yourself of actually doing what I say, or, like, being honest about how things are going. And so I think that's kind of a shift of, do you want to run races and have fun, which is awesome, or, like, do you want to be, at the top, trying to be as close to the top as you can be? So
yeah. When did you make that decision to, I want to be more of an elite runner rather than just going out on weekends and knocking around with my friends, having a good time, finishing middle of the pack? Was there a certain point in your life when that changed, or have you always been competitive?
I've always been competitive. I mean, it's just like growing up. Yeah, I remember very distinctly in like seventh grade, I used to run with the high school kids for track and cross country, and I was up with the front girls, and they were mad. They were really mad that I was up there, and I just had no idea that I wasn't supposed to be there. It's like, well, of course, if they're, if I'm here, if I can be here, why wouldn't I be?
Yeah.
And they were just like, God, get this seventh grader away. Like, what is she doing? And I think I've just, I was raised in a family where I wasn't ever told I couldn't do something, or I wasn't ever told like, no, that's not, that's out of your reach. So I think that I've always held on to that. And, my first 50K, I had trained with Hal Kroner's 50K training block,
Yes.
which I came to find out later is like actually really hard. And I like was so religious of like every mile, whether I ran at 9 o'clock at night after working like a 12-day shift. I was just waitressing for the summer. If I had to run 12 miles on the treadmill at 9 o'clock at night, like I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I ended up like accidentally placing second overall in my first 50K. And I was just like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. And I think I've carried that with me throughout my running. Is like, I never anticipated I would be able to compete at a decently high level. So I'm grateful it's like, I'm kind of, every time things go well, I'm always like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Like, that's super cool. But I also train. I mean, I do believe in myself. Like, I do believe that these hard things and these big goals are attainable. But I also think that because I never, I wasn't like a cross country star in college. I was a lacrosse player. And I, didn't come off like a stellar track thing, like track background. So I think that every time something happens that is like, oh, cool. Like, I wasn't expecting that. That's awesome. So I feel really grateful for the results that I've had and what I've been able to do. And there's still a lot left on the table, and I still have so much I'm striving to reach. But I still feel like I feel really lucky that I've been able to do so far, like what I have been. And it's hopefully just the beginning.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're 28 years old, you probably haven't even peaked yet, Alyssa. Like,
I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's still coming. How did you find ultramarathon? Like, how old were you when you signed up for your first race? And how did this all start for you? You said you weren't really doing a lot of collegiate running or high school running. You were doing sports, but how did you find ultramarathon?
Yeah, so I actually hated running as a kid, but I read this book called Ultramarathon Man, and
Oh shit. Okay. That was it.
Yep,
That's what did it
that
for me
was
too.
it. Yeah. Gosh. So Dean actually messaged me during the marathons, and I was fangirling
No way.
so hard. Yeah, on
Oh,
Instagram. I
wow.
was like,
Yeah.
Dean. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he
Um,
did a marathon a day in each state for 50
so
days in a row. And
that
the
like,
logistics of that is way
yes.
crazier than what you did, but still
Yes.
you did almost double of what he did. So that's a
Yeah.
cool conversation.
Yeah, I would love to actually sit down with him and chat sometime. I actually live pretty close to him, like an hour and a half. But yeah, I read his book when I was like 10 years old, and I just went, I want to do that one day. And I don't know why, because I hated running. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I think that what also sparked it. So while I didn't run at a collegiate level, I was a cross country skier through high school, and I went to so I'm from Vermont. We have these ski academies where you basically like skiing's kind of what you do. And so I in high school would go on like 4 to 5 hour trail runs as a part of our training. And so I think that really opened my eyes up to the joy of spending long times on trails, and not having to go fast, but just being out there experiencing it. And so that definitely set up, I think a strong base of endurance that I've been able to build off of. So in college, I decided that I wanted to run a marathon when I graduated, but somehow I skipped that and was like, I found an ultra 50K and was like, yeah, I'm going to do that instead. And I remember very sheepishly walking into our living room. And I was actually moving to Hawaii. So I graduated college and was moving to Hawaii for a teaching job in August. But so I was still at home, and I sheepishly walked into the living room, was like, so I may have signed up for 50K. And my parents were like, what did you do? Like, why didn't you do a marathon first? And I just got hooked. So that was when I was 22. I mean, pretty much straight out of college. And I've been, running and racing since. So now 6 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was that first 50K the one that you said you got second place at?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that what sort of hooked you in? I mean, did you just have a feeling like I can do this? Like I'm going to come back and do more of these, or what were your thoughts at that point?
Yeah. I think what was cool is that I discovered that when everyone else seemed to get tired, I seemed to get more energized. So I like loved the second half of the race. I just thought it was so fun. And I was just like, oh, okay. I really like this. So I moved to Hawaii. I did another 50K, which ended up going well. And then the year after that, so I did 2 50Ks, and the year after that, I got into the Hurt 100. So that was, I guess I'd only been really ultra running for 2 years, and then did Hurt. That
was your first 100?
That was my first 100. Yeah.
Dang, nice.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
Really well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
You have spent a lot of time on the islands, it looks like. And I looked at your website, and it says and this is what I like about you, Alyssa. You put your goals, and you're almost like stating it publicly right on your website. A couple of your goals are to run across America and get the women's FKT, and to run across or around all the Hawaiian Islands. And you also mentioned to be the winner of Tour de France one day, which I love that you're just like putting down the gauntlet. Like, here is what is going to happen someday, you guys.
I try to manifest a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something I guess the marathons kind of put me in a position where I was like it got a fair amount of attention, which I was not expecting at all, but was awesome. And so it kind of broke me of the fear of putting stuff out there. And so I think, if you don't say these goals, and I have failed, and I've been really embarrassed by failing. Absolutely. Like, I was super embarrassed after failing Tour de France this year, because I thought like I had put in the effort to be able to at least finish it.
Yeah.
And so, I think that though there is something really powerful about saying your goals out loud, and putting it out there into the world, and putting that energy into the world. Because I think if you keep them secret, in many ways, you give yourself the out of saying, well, if it doesn't work out, then it's fine. Because, I didn't tell anyone, or I didn't really want that. And I've found, though, that if you really embody that confidence, and you don't have to be cocky, but if you just say, like, this is what I really want, and I'm going to put in the work to get there, but also I'm going to put out in the world that this is what I'm aiming for, and I'm going to work really hard to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I am all about it. And who else I think is really good at that is Sabrina Stanley.
Yeah.
For years, she's just been putting these goals out there and saying them publicly. And I remember when I've been running longer than her, and I feel like when she kind of first came onto the scene or whatever, you hear these goals and you think, okay, who is this person? This sounds kind of crazy, but then they do it. And then the next year comes, they say another goal, then they do it. And it's just so cool to watch. And yeah, I think that's huge. Just putting it out there publicly, saying it, writing it down, putting it out into the universe is all important. So I dig it.
Nice. Yeah, I have a friend, actually one of my friends from the Pinhoti, who I've helped coach a bit. He just kind of decided that he was going to try to go for the Pinhoti 100 next year. And we were doing a talk yesterday with Corey Waltering too about the Pinhoti, and I kind of accidentally called him out on, oh yeah, and so what are you doing next year? Because we had just talked about it earlier in the day, and he was like, oh, well, I wasn't going to put it out there, and I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just way too used to just be like, yes, here are my goals. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I also know what it's like to be on the other side of that when you're like, my goal is so big that I'm almost scared to say it out loud. I'm scared to say it publicly. Like I've been there too. So I get it from all angles.
yeah. But isn't that ultras though?
Totally.
Yeah. It's like, but if you're so like, the best goals are the ones that scare you, because it's like, I don't know if I can do this. And we have so little of that uncertainty in our lives that it's so exciting to be like, I could do everything right to do this, and I still might fail. I still might not even finish. And that I think is super cool. And I think it's exciting because I think so often as adults, we lose that where everything's so sure of what we do. And I talk to my students, I think inspire me because they have these lofty goals. They're like, I want to play, college football, or I want to play, I want to be an actor or musician, and you get too entrenched in adulthood, and it's like you just go, well, every day, and like, I'll just one day at a time. And I think the exciting thing about ultras is you have these awesome goals that you're not sure you're going to do. And I think that that's really exciting, and we're lucky to have that.
Yeah, agreed. And then, yeah, I want to talk to you about your goal of running around or across all the islands of Hawaii. I just went to Hawaii for the first time and spent some time on Kauai, and it was just beautiful. We did some running and hiking there, and it was just tremendous. But which island did you live on when you lived there?
Yeah, so I lived on Oahu for 3 years, and I'm still mad at myself that I didn't run around the perimeter, because that is an epically hard 130-ish miles.
Really?
Yeah, one of my friends actually has a FKT on it right now. Actually, I know both the men's and the women's. But it yeah, I loved it there. There's such a great trail running community there. And so I'd love to go back and figure out Kauai. You'd have to run more across it than around it.
I think so.
Yeah, you can't really once you get to the Pali Coast, you can get out to the water, but then you can't really get around it.
That's true.
So,
yep.
Yeah, it would be tricky, but I've been lucky enough we would just like take the earliest flight out in the morning and then go fly to like Maui and run up Haleakala.
Oh, really?
And then come back. We get a group of like 10 to 12 people. I've also been a part of Epic 5.
Oh yeah.
I've worked a little bit for them and helped out with the 50Ks. So I've done 50Ks through that because they do 5 50Ks in 5 days on 5 Hawaiian islands. They also do 5 Ironmans, which is way more intense than the 50Ks. And so I've done Molokai and Maui with them. And I've also run on Big Island quite a bit and Kauai quite a bit. So yeah, I would love to go back and see what I can do over there as well.
That would be cool. I'm curious what your training looked like for Ouray, because you said Ouray was just a training run for tour, which is almost unfathomable. But like, were you running big mileage before Ouray, and what was your training like?
So really the emphasis was on more vert than miles. But so I'll do probably consistently, I'll run between like 80 to 100 miles per week. And then, sometimes like my peak training for tour was this 1 week where I ran like 130 or 40 miles and probably spent like 25 to 30 hours on foot, which was a lot.
Yeah.
But Ouray, a lot of just a lot of vertical, a lot of like sometimes it would be, go out for a lot on the weekend, like 5 or 6 hours of hiking, running. So hike all the uphills, run the downhills, shooting for, 4,000 feet or 6,000 feet of climbing for elevation. And then I actually did an Everesting in like right at the end of June. So that was, I think a really good mental workout for Ouray. Oh, yeah. That was like 3 weeks out around there. And then I'd actually done Rainier with my husband. So that was really fun, of like getting up to over 14,000 feet. And around that, a lot of like 20 to 25 mile runs, and just kind of alternating like mileage and time. But yeah, I mean, big weeks, slow miles, but really focusing on vert, of getting downhill legs ready, because that goes super fast if you're not really prepared for that. But yeah, I mean, we're really lucky. We have Big Sur in our backyard, which has some pretty decent sized mountains. We go up to Yosemite a lot, so that has, great terrain. So I have access to, minimum 2,000 foot climbs plus, which I think set myself up for Ouray pretty well.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it sounds like an incredible year and another incredible year to come.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you.
I'm curious about a low point. Like, what was it like for you coming back from tour? Like, if everything, all your eggs were sort of put in that basket, and then it had to have been a big disappointment, but you were able to dig yourself back from that and still set your FKT for the year. But if you wouldn't mind, just like, what was that disappointment like? Was there depression that came with it? Was it just a low couple days, or were you able to get over it pretty quick?
No, it was a low couple of days. So right after, so the race starts on Sunday, and I made the decision to stop really late Wednesday night, or like actually like Wednesday evening. And so I was scheduled to stay there until Sunday. And so I had 2 really good friends come out to crew me. So we just kind of spent the day, the next couple of days, like going around Aosta Valley, which is beautiful. Like we went to Chamonix. And so that was really fun. And I think that kind of pushed away how sad I was feeling about the race, because I was spending time with, some great people. I was in this beautiful area, and I could kind of forget about the race even happening. Yeah. But I remember I was sitting in the airport about to fly back, and I was just crying, because I was just so, you picture yourself coming back like triumphant and happy, and like, we're going to celebrate. It's going to be so great. And you always know in the back of your head, like, yeah, that might not work out. But you come back and you just feel like I put so much time and effort into this, and I have nothing to show for it. And that's not true, but it's how it feels. It's how it feels. And, my school had been following me. So all my kids knew about it, all these teachers. And of course they're like, that's so cool. It's so amazing you even did that to begin with, but it wasn't the goal I was trying to hit. It wasn't what I was trying to do. And I was embarrassed. I was sad. Definitely like probably a little bit depressed. Like my husband at one point, probably a couple of days after I'd gotten back, he was just like, you've got to snap out of this. Like this, you have got to stop wallowing in like your misery, because life goes on. And, it happens. You don't always hit these goals, and you can either be super sad about it, or you can pick yourself up and like, life is good. Like you have so much going for you. Yeah. And I think that really helped. And I think it also helped, I think the danger of being just a runner, or to having all of your eggs in that basket, is you don't have kind of an outlet outside of that. And so teaching was just like, well, my kids still need to be taught, and I still have to lesson plan, I still have to grade. And they, they don't care. I mean, they care, but they don't. And so I think just teaching to go back to, having a supportive husband and all of that was just like, okay, yeah, that sucked, but life goes on, and what are we going to look forward to? Like, what's the next thing? And I try to be really careful not to dangle the carrot always, because I think we're always kind of looking at like, what's going to be next. And I really tried not to just jump to the next thing right away, to be like, to soothe myself in a way of like, oh, but if you can go get this Pinhoti FKT and make it all better. So I did meditate on just where I was at and not trying to jump to that next goal for, I would say, like at least a couple of weeks. And then I had a conversation with Sean being like, hey, I don't feel like I'm done. I don't know what that means, but I feel like I want to look for something. And then I took about a week or two after that to be like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm really leaning towards Pinhoti. What do you think about that? And he was like, I think you should do it supported. And yeah, let's see what you can do. I think you can succeed at it. So, but I do think it's really easy when you have a disappointment to be like, I'm just going to jump in another race, or I'm just going to jump to the next goal. And I do think that you have to acknowledge like, yeah, I'm really disappointed and that sucks, but guess what? Life is still okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think taking that time and pausing is something I've not really let myself do before. And I do think that helped, because Pinhoti wasn't this like, I'm going to prove myself, like, one last hurrah this year to make sure that it doesn't end on a disappointment. It was like, no, I genuinely want to do this. Like, I'm excited. I have lots of friends there. Like, I can't wait to go back and see these friends and go back, and like, it's a really fun trail. So I think I went into it in a headspace of like, I'm here to have a fun adventure, and I'm here to hopefully meet this goal, but like, I'm not resting all of my training's thrown away if it doesn't work out, or I have to prove myself to getting this or not. So I think that was a much healthier mindset to go into than maybe I would have taken into it before, with it like, no, I have to do something big, otherwise like this year wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah, but I think psychologically that would have set you up for possibly a failure.
Yeah, I agree.
Go into an event really relaxed, feeling like whatever happens, happens. I'm just here to have fun with my friends, and I'm going to go as fast as I can and let the chips fall where they may. You're setting yourself up for success. That's the mindset of an FKT holder, I think, so.
And it's what's amazing. And to be fair, like, I mean, I got myself in a mentally rough spot in Ouray, because 50 miles in, I was like, I'm throwing up, because it just altitude and everything. I think Anthony had the same thing. Like, all of us were throwing up. And I had been like, maybe I can take a stab at the course records. Like, I did go into it taking it seriously, but in the back of my head, I was also like, this is a training run. Like, your big goal is next, do the best you can. You weren't set up to necessarily succeed at this. So I went into it a lot more relaxed. I went into it a lot more like, this is going to be fun. And I love Ouray. And so I think if I had taken that into tour a little bit more, maybe, things would have been different. But it's amazing how it's like, yeah, if you just relax and have fun, things go well. But like, bottling that up.
Right. And saving it for race day. That's a little tough to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Tell me about next year again. What do you have on the books? What do you have planned?
Yeah. So, actually, my friend and I are just talking about, there's a route in Big Sur that's never been, there's no FKT on it, but she and I are hoping to set like a team FKT on it and start a new route. So that's like 40-ish miles, but there's not a lot of FKTs in Big Sur. So we're hoping that maybe we can add a few
surprising.
on. Yeah. It's super surprising. So I think, we might take on some routes out there. And then her name's also Alyssa. She's an ultra runner. Yeah, it works out really well, the Alyssas. And then there's a Marathon du Mont Blanc has a 90K. So I'm in on that. And then hopefully, I think the ITRAS points or whatever to get into TDS. I've kind of been kind of side-eyeing UTMB for a while. I'm not quite, I think I want to save UTMB itself for when I'm a little bit older. But TDS looks like a whole lot of fun, minus the really horrific accident last year, but really technical, I think just a cool course. It's plays to my strengths a little bit more. And then Moab 240 are kind of the big three. And then probably some I live in such a hotbed of races, it might be a 50K here,
sure,
something like that there. But yeah, that's.
And you're already in for Moab next year?
So I actually was supposed to in 2020, so I'm rolling over an entry. But I have to make sure that I don't miss the signups for that for sure.
Put it on your calendar.
Yeah. I think it's January. But yeah, I follow Candace in Destination, chat with Candace some, so I'm just like, I cannot miss this.
Cool. Yeah. Where do you want to take this thing, Alyssa? Do you just, is it your goal to go hard for 10 years and kind of put your name out there? Or is this something you're trying to, stretch out over the long span of your life?
I definitely want to do it for the rest of my life. And the lovely part of, the partnership I have with my husband is that we are mountain people. And so, maybe when I get older, that will look more in terms of leading trekking expeditions or, getting more into the mountaineering side of things. But I guess I want mountains in my life, the rest of my life. That's something I know. But I like pushing the boundaries of what women are capable of doing, of where we're going, of what man and nature has to offer. I like being, up there and seeing hey, how, why can't a record be super close to the men's, or why can't a record even beat the men's? And yeah, I want to see how I can reach. And I super excited about the fact that, ultra runners don't peak generally till way after they're 30. So I think just the years of consistent training I've put in, hopefully will really pay off. And I want to do big, hard mountain races. That's really what I love. So yeah, that's my jam. And that I'm hoping to see it as far through as I can. And then one day retire to more mountain stuff, just maybe, slightly different.
Yeah. The mountains are in your blood.
They definitely are.
Yeah, me too. Well, where can people find you? I know you're on Instagram, and I think you have a website too.
Yeah. The website's a little out of date, as everyone says their website.
Okay.
But yeah, I think probably the easiest way is Instagram. I'm Theory, THEORY _in_motion, MOTION.
What is that? Is that your coaching business?
Actually, yes, that also is my coaching business.
Okay.
I just randomly had a friend say to me, I'm an English teacher, and it was another English teacher, so it's super Englishy, of you seem to live your life you have this kind of theory of motion, you're always in motion, you're always moving, and that's how I associate with you. And so it's oh, I kind of like that. I'm gonna go with that. Yeah. So that's kind of where that comes from. And yeah, reach out to me on that. I really work to answer everyone, and email akamos13@gmail. You're welcome to reach out. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, marathons, Ouray, mountains, any of that stuff. So
you've done it all. Yeah. Well, so cool. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I love hearing your story and just finding out who you are and who's out there just doing these badass things. I just love it. So very inspiring conversation, and just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep an eye on you, and we'll be cheering for you for the next thing. So, and if you ever come to Colorado, give Chris and I a shout. Well, I'll have to go for a run.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, we're actually going back to Ouray to ice climb in December. So if
you're ice climbing out there.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's kind of our winter sport. But
how did you meet Chris? I'm curious.
Chris I went on Chris's podcast. He found me for the marathons. He's also friends with a couple of Hawaii people I know.
Okay.
So yeah, he reached out to the marathons, and then we just kind of like, he's such a nice guy. He's so friendly and fun that we've stayed in touch over Instagram. And then he asked me on after Ouray. So yeah, it's been good.
Cool. Yeah, he's such a cool guy. Thanks again for doing this, Alyssa. I really appreciate it. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank
We
you.
love it. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Have a great day. We'll see you later.
You too. Bye-bye.